because I'm not involved in sexual behavior that I shouldn't be. If I was in a car accident, which there's lots of car accidents there, but if I was in a car accident with someone else, and it was blood to blood, then I would be concerned. The other way is through mother to child transmission. So when the baby is inside the mother, if the mother's HIV positive, there is no chance for the baby to be HIV positive. It's when the baby comes out, that's when again body fluids are mixing. The mother's blood mixes with the child, and the child can at that point contract HIV from the mother, but not while the baby's still inside. Body fluid, breast milk can also pass it on to the baby, but it's a much lower likelihood. So I do not feel that I'm ever at risk in Swaziland for HIV.
OK， 他接下来的问题是，就是关于家庭，因为很多人都问到他的家庭部分，就是他的家人支持吗？那如果他有小孩的话，他会让他继续做一样的事情。
Okay, my family, my husband, when I first went to Africa and came back and said, I have to do something, I was ready to pack and move. And he said he was never going to Africa. Never. Until there was a Four Seasons hotel, like a 5-star hotel, he was never going to Africa. Never say never. My husband now lives on the farm. You saw his picture. He has not been on an airplane since August 2012. I can't get him to leave. He loves being there. So it took some time, but he also feels called to work in Swaziland. My children, they started going in 2005, and we would go for 8 weeks. Their whole school break, their summer break, they would go to Swaziland and Kenya with us. And so since they were 8 years old and 10 years old, they would go every year. I don't think either of them will continue doing what we do. You know, they're young people. They have different goals for their lives. My son is a business major. My daughter, as I said, is in high school in Taichung. But she's in Taiwan because of all of this. Because in Swaziland, we met people from Taiwan. We met a man from Changhua, and he started inviting me every year to Taiwan to an international youth conference. So for 6 years, I've been coming to Taiwan. And then I just keep meeting people and meeting people and meeting people, and I love Taiwan. And I love your country, I love your hearts, I love Taiwanese. You're just a different, just a wonderful people. And welcome, when my daughter was in Swaziland and not doing well in school there, she was welcomed a position here, and we're very thankful. She loves it. But I don't see either of them following in our footsteps. The rest of our family, yes, they think we're crazy. And that's okay. That's okay. Maybe we are crazy. I have 41 little babies. Maybe that's crazy. Okay, these are always tricky. Government questions. Why don't you ask the government in Africa? All right, we have to go back to our map. Why don't you ask the government in Africa to solve the problems about poverty, HIV, and AIDS? The other one is, what's the attitude of the Swaziland government towards the HIV or poverty question? For example, you said that the local people regard children abandonment as an important thing. Does this mean the government takes social problems priority? I also want to ask, did your organization manage to cooperate with local government? Those are very good questions. One of the slides said that we have a 70% unemployment rate. If you have a 70% unemployment rate, you have no tax money. You have a very low tax base. If you have no tax money, it's very hard to implement social programs. Taiwan is a great example, and I've heard it from President Ma through many high-ranking levels of government here, that 40 years ago, Taiwan was a recipient of aid. and now you want to be a giver of aid, which is great. My hope is that in 40 years, Swaziland will no longer be a recipient of aid, but will be a giver of aid to another nation. The government, I believe, sees the problem, but if there's no money to do much about the problem, you do what you can. There's a lot of education on HIV and AIDS. International funding has been significant for education on HIV and AIDS. But we still have culture to deal with. And so we can educate, not we, the government can educate the people about how you contract HIV, sexually transmitted, blood to blood. But then if they go to a traditional medicine person, that person might say, that's not how you get it, it's a curse. I don't like this man anymore, I'm going to put a curse on him, and I'm going to give him AIDS. Their culture says, who do I listen to? My mother and my grandmother and my great-grandmother all listened to this line of traditional medicine men, so he probably knows. But then maybe the government knows. What do we do? So it takes time, and HIV is still so new. When I first went in 2005, it was only 8 years ago, people were still not even wanting to be tested. This is still a very new problem. And so I think the government is still trying to figure out how to get ahead of it, and maybe it's too late to get ahead of HIV and AIDS because it's such a big problem. But they're very supportive of us. We work hand in hand with the government every single day, and yes, the police police get very, very angry when babies are dumped. And they search very hard to find the mother, but then if they find the mother goes to prison. And I understand that. I think she should go to prison. If she dumped her baby in a pit latrine, but then I see the other side and I think, she was 14. She didn't know. So it's my compassionate side sometimes balances out with my anger towards the baby that I'm now caring for.
As a student, sometimes we feel that actually what we do because we are not professors. And here's a lot of people are pushing international volunteer, but it costs a lot of money. So would you agree with being a volunteer or just donate? Okay, and this one is also good. Sometimes we will be asked about, here's a lot of people need help in our own country. What should we do?
I get these questions all the time, actually. So I'll deal with the student one first. I would rather come and speak to a group of high school students or university students any day than a group of adults. And not saying you're not adults, I mean business people. And I'll tell you why. Because when you see the picture of baby Deborah, or Caleb, or you hear the statistics, high school students and university students always say, what can I do? How can I help? And which leads to the next question, how do I help? I'm a university student, I have no money, I'm studying. But what I love about speaking to you is you all think, what could I do? When I speak to adults, people who have graduated, or church groups, or gatherings of mothers and fathers, you know what they say? Someone should do something. Why isn't the government doing something? If I speak at churches, why isn't the church rising up and doing something? Someone over there should do something. But you guys don't think that way. High school students and university students say, what can I do? And you have to find that answer for you. Because again, we can't fix it, right? So what are you supposed to do? Are you supposed to become more educated? You certainly need to learn more about HIV and AIDS. First thing, you need to learn more about TB. You need to become more educated about this. But And then the question of, you know, should you just send money instead of coming? No, I would say any day, if you had $4,000 US or $2,000 US, whatever that is in NT, you had enough money for an airplane ride, Swaziland, or you could give me the money, every time I'll say, come. You have to come and see. Because until you meet the people, and you see that they're not, you know, people think, oh, well, they're just lazy, they're unemployed. No, but we have lots of social problems. And you know, we had a group from Taipei Medical University who came and they saw there are many challenges, but there's joy. You know, the children of Swaziland who have no food and very few little clothing and maybe struggling with education, they've lost their parents, they often have more joy than my children on Christmas morning when they get gifts. There's joy there, and they're just happy that you came to visit. They get joy out of simple things that all of us need to learn. You know, what gives us joy? Usually it's things, it's tangible. But these children have joy because you came to visit them, and it will change your life. With all the money we're donating to NGOs, how much of it is actually going directly to help the people in need? Do NGOs ever collide with each other, or collaborate maybe with each other, or does everyone just kind of do their own thing? Well, there are probably hundreds of thousands of NGOs around the world, so I certainly can't speak for any of them, except for ours. I think some spend money well, and some probably don't spend money well. I'm not responsible for them, so that would be like saying, are all the governments in the world corrupt? Yes, no, I don't know. So I can't speak to the broad one. Because I'm a business person, and because I know what it takes to make $1 or an NT, any money that is given to me is stretched and stretched and stretched and used until I can't get anything more out of it. And I'm not responsible for the other NGOs, but I'm responsible for our NGO. And as a Christian, I believe that one day I will stand before God, and He's going to ask me what I did with that money. And I have to make sure that I'm accountable for that. So we take that very, very seriously. Certainly, there are NGOs who work together. The food that the 74,000 meals that we provide each month, we're working with another NGO. So they give us the dried goods. The organization is called Feed My Starving Children. And so they provide them to us, and then we're the ones who go and distribute to the community. So we work very closely with them. Another company, Tom's, do you know Tom's Shoes? Some of you might have Tom's. Tom's Shoes, if you buy a pair of shoes, they donate a pair of shoes to a child in a third world country. So we are also a partner of Tom's. So all of the children, those 74,000 that we feed, also get a pair of shoes every 6 months. So there are examples of NGOs working together. Most NGOs, like some might focus on water, and some might focus on orphans, and some might focus on other things. So if you can find a way to work together, it's great. But not everyone does that.
Which decision did you think was wrong and regret it? And during the whole process, what's the most frustrating thing that happened?
Okay, so let's start with that one. During my work, which decision did you think was wrong and regret it? Oh, I regret things every day. Because I don't listen enough. You know, just keep that slide. I should write it on my hand. I'm still learning, but I'll tell you a story. When I was in Kenya on my first trip, and I was at an orphanage and I had 400 children. And it was a wonderful experience. It was a really good, there's a lot of orphanages that are not good. This was a good place. And I got to know the kids, and I had been interviewing all these girls, and I had this idea. That was still my first trip. And my idea was to go and buy ice cream for all the children at the orphanage. Because I thought, that would be great, because they've probably never had ice cream before. Wouldn't it be awesome? What a great idea. I'm so smart. I'll go buy ice cream for all the children at this Kenyan orphanage. So I go to the director and I present to him my brilliant idea of bringing ice cream for all the children. And he said, oh, yes, that's a very good idea. Or we could give them meat. They don't ever get meat because there's no money. And I learned a big, big lesson that day. And it goes back to listen, keep your mouth shut, learn. And I've never forgotten that. It was 2003. That I'm thinking, let's give them a treat. Not that that was so bad of me, but I didn't even know the first level of what they needed. And if we're going to give them a treat, let's give them protein, something that they really need that will make them strong. So I have, while I regretted that, it was a really good lesson for me to learn the hard way. What was the other one? Oh, most frustrating thing I've ever experienced. Oh, I don't know. Me wanting to buy ice cream instead of meat. It's all hard. Someone told us before we moved, you really have to want to help. It's hard to help sometimes. Sometimes there might be a baby who's stuck somewhere, stuck in the hospital, and we have there was a baby who was 14 months old, and his father lit him on fire. And the child had third-degree burns from here to here. And the father was in jail, and the child wasn't able to go back to the mother because of a social situation. And so they were telling us, when the child is healed, can the baby come to us? I said yes, but we want to take the child and get proper skin grafts and try to get the child healing quickly. And they wouldn't let us take the child from the hospital to go to a better hospital until the child was healed. But the child wasn't going to heal in that hospital. The child continued getting infections. The child wasn't getting proper care for the burn. That was very frustrating. When I knew that I could take the child to a private hospital in Swaziland and get the child excellent care and get the skin grafting done, the child had a colostomy because of the burns. That was very frustrating, and it took 56 days of working with various departments to finally allow us to take the child and get him excellent care. And now the skin grafts are done, he's running, he's playing, his colostomy's been reversed, and he's a happy child. But that was very frustrating.
I'm very impressed with the philosophy of volunteering. May I ask about the story and your experience of figuring out this philosophy during your volunteer life? And another similar question is, how to know what we give is what they really need?
Well, I think the way I think back to listen and learn is how we know. I can't go in, it's like the ice cream and the beef. I thought what they needed was a treat of ice cream, and I was taught that what they needed was meat. We need to ask more questions and just learn. And that's how I got the question about philosophy. That's how I got my philosophy, because when I first got to Africa, I did it all wrong. I did it the way I did things in Canada in business. And I wasn't in Canada anymore, and I wasn't in business anymore. Volunteering and serving someone is very different than directing someone from a business perspective. Now, my business skills have been very helpful in what we're doing on the farm, for sure. Our ability to grow vegetables and sell them, our ability for me to be able to come, I speak in Taiwan at least twice a year. My ability to communicate works, it works as part of my job. But when I'm in an African country, I need to change my mindset and take my business hat off and take my wanting to fix it and ask more questions.
What is the acceptance level by the Swazi when you first enter Swaziland and offer your help? How do you overcome with the obstacles that you meet? And the question is, how are you manage to survive without a job? Where do you get your fund from?
Okay, I can't remember. Sorry, what was the first one? Okay, well, first, Swazis are wonderful people, and I'm not just saying that because there's some in the room. Swazis are very unique people. They're a very gentle people. They're very welcoming of anyone who wants to come and help. We've never ever had any sort of conflict at all, like why are you here, what are you doing? Never. They're very, very open to anyone who wants to come and help, or if you just want to go and sit and have coffee and talk, very welcoming. I do have a job. The organization is Heart for Africa, and I am paid by Heart for Africa. Now, I would probably do it as a volunteer because this is the work I'm called to, but we have a charity status in Canada and we have charity status in America, and we have a board of directors, and so all of the fundraising that is done is done for projects, it's for running the farm, it's for administration. Our administration costs are probably the lowest of any NGO, but they do pay me to work at Heart for Africa.
What if you visit them after your races? OK， 就是如果你是在事业成功之后才开始援助非洲，那如果你在事业尚未成功的时候就拜访非洲，你还会有相同的决心和体悟吗？
If I had gone to Africa before I'd started business, I would never have gone into business. Never. When I look at refugee camps or internally displaced people camps, I want to go there. I want to go and help. I want to go and work. If I had done that before I got married and had children, I probably would not have gotten married and had children. I probably would have started life there and been there my whole life. So part of me, I'm really glad that I did the business piece so that I have other skills that I can add, and I have the ability to travel around the world and speak to people around the world and raise funds. The reason I'm here, actually, is the Changhua Senior High School every year do what's called Walk for Water. And they raise money for us at Heart for Africa in Swaziland. And so we're in the process of building a large dam that will allow us to irrigate more crops. And if we can irrigate more crops, we can get 3 crops a year, and we can generate more food, and we can generate more employment. But we don't have a river on the farm, so we have to rely on rainwater. And so when the rains fall, which is right now, the rains have started, we are trying to build another big dam so that we can irrigate crops throughout the year. So that's what I do part-time, is I travel around the world and do fundraising for things like dams.
Why did you choose to base Heart for Africa in Swaziland? And the funding for Project Canaan only from the exported goods?
Swaziland really chose us. We didn't choose Swaziland. We went and volunteered with a man back in 2005 for a number of weeks after we had closed our business, and we just fell in love with the country, we fell in love with the people, and really have a heart for the children, the orphans and vulnerable children who have been left behind. And we felt that it was a country where we really could make a difference. It's a small country, very open to international assistance, and we felt that we could make a difference. So that's why we chose Swaziland. Funding comes from donors internationally. And right now we're trying to get to the place where the vegetables on the farm, when we sell them, actually will pay to plant more vegetables. That we're trying to achieve self-sustainability. It's very, very hard. Even in America, farmers are subsidized by the government. Trying to at least cover our costs from the sale of vegetables, because when we sell a cabbage, or we sell spinach, we're selling it to very poor people that they need to eat. So it doesn't help if we make the price here and then they can't buy it. We need to be able to sell it at a price that a Swazi can buy it. But there's maybe sometimes no profit. So right now we're still dependent on donors, but we hope through the farm and through our artisans and our crafts that we'll be able to not need to be dependent on donors.
What would happen to the babies you have raised in the farm? Basically about your plan in the future.
Okay. So these babies are our children until they're 18. As I mentioned, if we have funding and if they have the aptitude, they'll go to university. If not, then they may be carpenters, they may be masons, they may be working in the agriculture. I consider them, as much as we don't have international adoption there, but I consider them my babies. So when my children turn 18, they have to go to school, get a job. They can't live off of me anymore. So these children, we may give them a little bit more latitude because they've had a rough start, but our goal is, we believe that these children really are the future leaders of the country. And we're educating them. They will learn Chinese. It's very important to us. The Minister of Education here in Taiwan has committed to us that we'll be able to have a teacher come over in whatever, whether it's first grade or fourth grade, to introduce Chinese to these students, and it gives them, it's not about indoctrinating, but it's providing an opportunity for those who have the aptitude to learn another language, and an important language globally.
Okay. I have a friend study finance and economics at UCLA, and he wants to be a businessman like you were. Do you have any suggestion for a teenager who has such dream like you were?
Work hard. Work from early morning until late at night. Work some more.
I think we probably covered most of them, and so I want to give some opportunity to audience who want to interact with Janine. Anyone have any comments or question? 有人有任何问题，或者是有任何评论，或者是有任何想要对他表示敬意，或者是想要或者想要跟他合作也可以，对。用桌上麦克风，按一下。
讲英文。
It's up to you.
Well, the language be a big barrier between us and the people in Swaziland when we give them help or something.
English is the teaching language in most African countries. So in Swaziland, the teaching language is English. So if a child is in school, then they're learning English. The challenge usually for us is if we go out into the rural communities with the grandmothers, the ones who haven't been to school, then they don't speak English at all. But we always have interpreters with us. And the children all speak English, so they'll help us communicate with the grandmother. But otherwise, language isn't a problem.
Anyone else?
Have you encountered any hate or violence or discrimination when you were in Swaziland?
Absolutely none. Swaziland is a very peaceful nation. They have one tribe, one language, they've never been at war. In fact, King Somcholo, who was 2 kings ago, the grandfather to the current king, had a vision just at the turn of the century, about white people coming to the country. And it's a really cool story, I won't share it right now, but he called his warriors together and said, people with the long nose and the straight hair will be coming. And actually, he was saying he had a vision from God that they would be bringing the Bible, and he'd never even seen a book before. But he said, we're not to go to war with them. We're to remain peaceful. So even Swaziland was never a colony. It was a protectorate under British rule, but it was never colonized. So they have a very different history than most other African nations. If I go to South Africa, it's very different. There's a lot of racial tension and much more danger for me, but I never feel in danger. And I have a very blonde-haired, blue-eyed daughter, and it's a very safe. I've never felt any racial bias at all, ever.
还有吗？请大家把握机会哦。Okay, I think time is probably up, so we will call an end right now, but you can still talk to her privately if you want to. And 谢谢大家今天来，那我们一起给她一个就是最热烈的掌声。那请大家在离场的时候把那个问卷填妥，然后交给我们一样专网费服务个人。那小宣传一下，就是我们社团在现在开始，今天或者是明天。